another episode of the Melanated Midlife podcast. We are, I will say, I'm honored that these two ladies are here today to share their story. We are talking about the authors of the book Perspectives. And this is co-written by sisters Dr. Denetria Phlegm and then Qiana Compton. You ladies came together to write this story. This is not necessarily a fairy tale. This is about a very traumatic event that you both experienced. And we're going to talk a lot about that because trauma, unfortunately, I am not an expert. I'm learning from your example, and I will say that, first of all, before we get too deep into this episode, I want to just say that we will talk a lot about mental and emotional health and unpacking these things, but none of us are claiming to be experts. But these ladies are brave enough to share their personal story of what they've individually experienced and then the impacts on their family. So this is going to be a good one. I hope that we are taking notes because I got a whole lot of questions. And the fact that they're able to put things out there are definitely going to be educational for all of us. So ladies, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And I will also say, in Houston, there is a thing between North Side and South Side. And I'm a North Side girl. And when I read the book, believe it or not, as serious as the content is, I was like, these South Side people.
That's right.
And I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of that, and say, all right, we coming to hear the story. But yeah.
Sunnyside specifically.
Sunnyside,
Cloverland.
Texas. Sunnyside, Texas. So let's talk about, first of all, you ladies you've lived full lives, full careers and everything. Mm-hmm. And obviously very successful, very put together, secure women. Mm-hmm. But there's something that we were talking about, before we started filming about honoring what the little girl experienced. And I'm repeating that out loud, and I'm already getting chills, mm-hmm. thinking of so many different levels that could go to. But let's first of all start with right now. Mm-hmm. And in midlife, we're going to go back and unpack a few things. But for right now, let's talk about what is midlife looking like for the two of you right now.
Mm-hmm. I'll say for me, it's probably the opposite of what a lot of people are going through now. Like people are kind of experiencing being an empty nester and maybe wrapping up their careers, like counting down the days to retirement. I'm not there. Like I really love what I do as a career. And I just landed kind of what I consider to be like a dream job. So mm-hmm. I feel like I'm just beginning that. And my children are 24, 19, and 8. So I have another decade before I can even think about being an empty mm-hmm. nester. So I think some people feel like and we were just talking about this, that it's like a closure of things. Mm. I feel like the word that keeps coming to mind is pivot. Like I feel like it's a new chance to pivot. I see opportunities. I'm excited. Mm-hmm. And my husband's probably like, calm down every once in a while. But I'm like, let's go. Like, what else can we do? Yeah. And I think with that is all the wisdom and the lessons and the things that you've learned to get to this point mm-hmm. that are going to make those things even sweeter, I think.
I love
so
that.
That's for me.
Yeah. Good. And for me, I think my answer probably may not be shocking, but definitely for me, it's just more so of an acceptance. Mm-hmm. Like, I know people are looking like, oh, my oldest is 25, my youngest is 20. I'm almost an empty nester, but that part of it, because between college and taking care of mom and like, I'm just now mm-hmm. breathing. It does not feel like I'm just sitting at home with nothing to do. Like, it's still work. But I definitely, for me, midlife is acceptance. I was always fixing, always worried about the outside, and now I can deal with me and deal more with my internal mm-hmm. and just accepting and not trying to fix anything or anyone. I don't have to get up and get anybody ready for anything. And so I definitely do enjoy that, and definitely career-wise, definitely found me a good company. Been in the oil and gas field for a while now, but found me somewhere where I feel settled and comfortable and hopefully can retire from.
Heck yeah.
Thank prayerfully.
Yeah. And that's something I want to also mention. People that are outside of Houston, they don't understand what the economic options are here. Mm. So you kind of have different, I'll say, sections of the economy. You've got oil and gas, which is predominant in this region. And then we've got the tech field, and there's... the Houston Medical Center is pretty much medical center to the entire world.
Yes.
So when you hit that corporate place, it's one of those places. So if people hear you're in oil and gas, they're like, oh, she fine. You know?
Not necessarily.
She good. Right. Well, okay. So this is good. I always like to hear different people's perspectives of what midlife is, because I feel that this is our peak. Just me, period. You know, I feel like you said, there's a closure to some things, and then there is a certain amount of time, because you mentioned mom having to take care of aging parents. So right there in the middle, in that sandwich, is kind of this little sweet spot where you kind of get to be selfish, you get to do what you want before you're taking care of somebody else again. So being able to honor that is important. But let's let everybody understand a little bit more about your background. And the reason why we're here today is this book. So first of all, this is an exclusive, because at the time that we are recording this episode, this book is just published. So we are the first on the book tour. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Let's claim it. You know, this is the first stop on the book tour.
Yes.
And as sisters, you wrote this together. How long did it take for this project?
A little over 10 years from idea,
from
of just
idea,
talking about it to this point, a little over 10 years.
Why so long?
I know, just really sitting down and dedicating ourselves to actually doing it. You know, we knew, my sister Qiana, we got a story. I know it can help people. We really got to put pen to paper. So within that 10 years, can't say we were ever actually working on it, but by the time we started writing, it maybe about 3 years to where we actually started recording ourselves, having conversations and saying, hey, we got to put this on paper. This is actually good, and it will help people. Because that's the whole point. I don't want to put my dirty laundry out here just for putting it out here. I want to help somebody, you know? So...
And I think it was when we got into the real pen to paper part of it, it was a lot. It was heavy.
Yes.
And I don't think we ever, we're super close. We're only 2 years apart. But we've talked about some things, but to go back to those moments and relive them and talk about them and unpack them, like you said, it was a lot. And I think I want to say we took over a summer, because that was a lot of when I have a lot of the free time. And we wrote the narratives and from our own perspective, and we shared it with each other. And then we came together and had a conversation about it. And so half of the book is our narratives, and then the other part of each chapter is our conversation about those chapters. And it was draining. It was. And I think we did it like back to back, like one weekend, next weekend. And it took a lot. Like, we even had to take a pause and say, you know what? Let's just sit here for
let's
now.
Just sit in this.
And now, okay, you ready? Let's go. And so there was some of that starting and stopping too along the past few years.
Did you write this with the help of a therapist, or was this just your raw need to get this out there?
Yeah.
Our raw need. No, I mean, we've gone to therapy individually for the things that we've gone through way after we should have went, but we did. That's all that matters. But no, this was just our sit down sisters. We went through this. Let's talk about. I learned things about myself. I didn't even know certain things. Just writing this, it was healing. This was a part of going, post traumatic growth. It's just sitting down and talking about the person that you went through hell with, and you guys have never really sat down as women, as adult married women with grown kids, and had a real conversation about what you went through.
And I have to credit her too, really, because she's a little gangster, but she just a little bit, but she's emotional too. And so, like, when we go through things, I think I'm fair with saying this, like, she feels it and she goes through it. I'm the ostrich in the sand. I put my head in the sand. I go around it. I go over it or under it. Like and so we've had conversations about, Shay, we need to talk about this, or we need to talk about that. Like, she pushed me in a way to kind of say, let's talk through this. Let's deal with this. Let's, have we ever considered or had this conversation? And so that was a little bit of it that made it more raw for me. And even in the writing of the book, she said, I think you could have opened up a little bit more in this chapter. And you did, but she really did encourage me to go through it, because that's not normally my way of doing things. Yeah.
So the book is appropriately titled Perspectives, because the two of you as sisters, you're basically retelling the story of a very traumatic event that took place in your adolescence. And this, how old were you when this
12
happened?
and
14.
14.
12 and 14. So pretty pivotal time.
Yes.
And this is really the story of your parents and their marriage, their relationship. And tell us exactly what things were like in the house.
You want to go first?
In the house, and that's the, we were talking about it, it was confusing because at times we had a pretty comfortable, we would consider ourselves a middle class. My mother worked at the downtown post office for over 30 years. Our dad worked at a chemical plant in Pasadena,
Texas,
for years.
Good money.
Good
Yes,
money.
and we grew up in Sunnyside, but they got married and got their own house, a big beautiful house, pretty early on after moving to Houston. So we felt like it was pretty good until we started to see signs that it wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah. And we loved them. They loved us. They worked really hard. They provided for us. Like we didn't have the experiences of like going without.
Right.
That was never an issue. It was more watching little things here and there about some things that my mom may have been going through within their relationship. And then it got to a point, I think, where it all spilled out. And then we realized, well, this is not what we thought it was. And it got pretty dark. So I would say before the traumatic event, we were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe up until a year before, I felt like we had picket fence family. Had no idea that my parents were going through what they were going through in their marriage. So,
So the book starts out one particular day.
Yeah.
One day in particular. And you gave me, I'll say in advance of a preview.
Yeah.
And we were sitting here, just so everybody understands, we're just sitting here chatting about the book and the experience. And I told you that I got to a certain part in the book where you threw me for a loop. And I thought there was a happy ending. I thought that maybe this was going to take some twists and turns, and then we come out on the other side just fine. And that didn't happen. There was a tragedy.
Yeah.
You both witnessed.
yes.
And from that point, that's where the story diverges.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
I would say that's a very good summary. I think because we are talking about trauma, like we felt it was important to start with that event.
Yes.
And then I think the rest of the book, there's 5 chapters total. The other chapters 2 through 5 are what we learned about relationships after that event and kind of making connections from the past to kind of things that we were seeing show up in our lives over time. So like we got to a happy place. And I think that's kind of the message too, is that we went through this event.
Right.
It was really bad for a long time. That's why we're both big proponents of therapy, kind of figuring it out. And then we realized that event stained, that's the word I keep thinking of, stained the rest of our relationships for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Really?
And so we talk about our ideas about marriage, our ideas about parenting children, our relationship with our mom that a lot of Black women, I think, don't really talk about because those dynamics are not always peachy keen, And so that one event stained how we moved in relationships for so long until I don't even think we really got into therapy until like my early 30s, maybe mid 30s, and really kind of started unpacking those things. And I think now, like you said, like this is kind of like the sweet spot. Like we're at a point now to where we've worked through those things. We've had those conversations. We have loving spouses. We have great children. So we got to the other side. But
the beginning was pretty rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20s were not. We're not good, and we share those experiences.
Yes.
So with watching your parents' relationship, the marriage, and I remember reading in the story itself that I can't remember, and forgive me, I can't remember who was it that basically kind of saw, okay, yeah, Daddy was kind of erratic when, in the beginning, and then the other sister was saying, well, no, Mama was the one that was, struggling and blah, 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 and everything. Tell us about your different perspectives from this event.
From actually watching them, because you feel like somebody's a victim, and so kind of growing up for a little while, it was just like, man, dad was like this bad guy. He abused her. No, we never saw any physical abuse. We saw evidence of that abuse. And then as you grow up a little bit, you begin to see the things that mom was doing as well. That there was adultery there. I mean, for the kids to see and hear and know about, And so once you get a little bit older, you put that together and you say, well, okay, well, who really was the bad guy? And then you looking at responses and things that were happening, with both of them. And like I said, you thought things were great until they weren't. And so when you see those relationships and how that was going on, like Shea said, it stains how you deal. Because I can remember even just being a young woman saying I would never get married, And even once I did, I still viewed my husband from the lens of it might turn out bad, or I'll never be the woman that always fix his place or sir, because I watched my mom do that and look how their stuff came out. I mean, and it sounds like, oh, you think like that? But we will act out subconsciously what we viewed and saw because we feel like, hey, if there's a possibility it won't end well, just stuff like that.
Yeah. And I'll say, too, even on that day, her perspective of those events was different than mine because she had a chance to talk to our mom that day.
I did.
I was in middle school, and so my bus came home later, I think, in the afternoon. So she got to talk to my mom before everything kind of happened, and I didn't. I just kind of came home, and it was like, my dad was there, and then we went out for McDonald's, and but she got a little bit more background than I did. Some of the things that she shared in her chapter, I didn't even know that it happened because she spent, would you say, 30 minutes, an hour or so with mom before everything kind of happened?
Probably an hour, yeah.
And so she had that background knowledge where I
saw
didn't.
Part of the spiral.
Yes.
I had a little bit more context of what was going on. Because remember, our parents are actually in the middle of a divorce. They have separated officially, but my dad doesn't want it. And so they're getting back together in the midst of this, and they're not. I mean, and another good thing that I did years back is that I actually contacted the Houston Police Department and got the police report. And when I tell you, it brought me so much closure because we were taken to the police station that day and we wrote out statements. And I was just 2 weeks into being 12 years old. And I remember seeing at the top of my statement, even though I am a child, I actually do know the difference between right and wrong. Like they made me say that, because I was just 12 years old. And I didn't even remember a lot of the stuff that I wrote down. And so that was even healing. And it took me, this was from 1989. And I was asking for this information like 2012, 2013. And once the lady figured out who I was, and then she was like, oh my God, babe, I'll go to another building and dig this stuff out for you. I thank God for good people. They still exist.
Yes.
And they emailed me all that stuff and I gave it to my sister. I even gave it to my mom. And it helped heal. So even just going back on stuff like that, and it helped me tell my story so well today because then it brought it, I mean, I lived it. It wasn't a fake story I told, so it helped me write out so clearly what happened that day because I did choose to go back years ago and actually get that report. And then I was able to remember a lot of the things I said my mom that day that they were at the divorce lawyer's office, and he ended up slapping her in the face, and so she was upset about a lot of things that Shea didn't know about. So she was like, why is everything feeling so weird today? And so I did have that pre-knowledge of why mom was so upset that evening when we got out of school.
Yeah.
One of the things that stood out to me from that day that I never knew was my mom was at the bank, and she wrote a check that he had made her sign over to him, and in the note or the memo section of the check, she wrote under duress.
And nobody saw it.
And they didn't notice it. And so she was crying out for help. And so just even having that background knowledge, I didn't know that until my sister got the police records and all that, and we kind of talked through that. So
amazing. And I think what I gleaned from listening to reading both of your sides of the story is you had this time to go back and reflect on how human your parents were.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have times in our childhood and adolescent, things good, bad, whatever. You have those moments where your parents, they're superhuman or they whatever level that they're on, things have a way of looking a lot differently from adult eyes.
Yes.
And so you had this time where you were able to go back and reflect, and like you said, the little girl that witnessed all of these things that day, you got to see both sides.
Yep.
And that just got to me, because I can say child of divorce myself as well. And there were a lot of things that I think were shielded from us, whispered conversations in the other room so that the kids wouldn't hear, or don't fight so that the kids don't see, things like that. But that did happen to you, and so you got a chance to, really unpack that. But what was, with the different perspectives between the two of you, there was it your side where you said daddy was kind of the hero, daddy's girl? Who was
She
the
always
daddy's
referred
girl?
to him as a superhero.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
okay.
he was my superhero. So to see, your superhero in that vulnerable state and realize that he's just a man, he's not just your great dad. He is a man that has hurts, that has pains, that has background, and even you just talking about just the parents, and like, take your parents off that pedestal, man. They're people, and back then I just remember thinking, oh, they're so old. I can't believe they didn't know better. They were 34.
Young, early 30s.
34.
Okay, you saying that right now that I didn't even put that together. That these
They
were very young
These
people.
were young people still figuring out life,
Wow.
And so as I begin to age, I was like, man, I was so hard on these people. They were young.
Yeah.
They got married at 21 and 22 years old. They were children.
Yeah.
Trying to navigate and doing great, on the outside, but they weren't dealing with that internal stuff that we have to deal with, or it will manifest in our lives. And that is the point of this book. It's like, man, deal with that stuff, because it's not going anywhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it will behoove you to walk back, to deal with your pain just a little bit. And you don't have to live there, and you don't have to depend on anybody else to get you through it. But as long as you take a look at it, you inspect it for what it is, forgive your parents, forgive yourself, and be able to move on. It's a short book, for everybody, anybody that gets it, and hopefully everybody does. It's not a novel. It's not a biography. It's a short, powerful story about how you don't have to stay stuck in your pain.
Is that the message that you're hoping?
Absolutely. That's the message that we're hoping to give. Because if you can look at these two little black girls and survive that, and watch the trauma, and we don't want to, like, man, what's the trauma? I got to get the book.
You gotta get the book. I know, and we're dancing around it because, when I read it and I was just like, I didn't know that was it. They were like, no, we want the reader to discover this themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're dancing around it being coy. We're deliberate. You have to buy the book, which we will link that in the show notes. So that you can understand exactly, everything about it. And first-time authors, I know I've said this before, but well done. I mean, it was very well written. So I don't know if it was maybe because it was your raw story, but I did feel like I was in that house.
Yes, and that's what we
felt
wanted
that.
to. That's what we wanted to convey. And just like with Shea, I pushed her to open up more. But she's, Dr. Phlegm got her stuff together, and she showed me how to write. Don't put that. Do this better. And just putting the book together and getting it to where it came. I definitely give my sister the credit for that, and pushing me to say, write some more. Do some more. We got to go ahead and get this out here because it's needed.
Our publisher was ready to go, and then he said, well, green light, and I was like, no, Qiana wants to add some more.
Yeah.
And so we went back, and I was like, another chapter? And she was like, no, just kind of expound on this. And we did that, and I was like, and I think we had to keep, your question earlier about why did it take so long, I think we kept saying, okay, is this what we want it to be? And we did make some major revisions here and there. A friend gave us the idea of transcribing our conversations and making that kind of the way the reader discovers some things too. So we really wanted to say, okay, we're happy with the product that it is, now go. And then I had to tell myself to get to a point of stop making changes.
Yes.
And just,
because you're going to rethink yourself out of everything if you do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's understandable. I mean, there's a lot that's going on there. And we, as women, we want it to be perfect. We want to put our best work out there. So, I mean, there's a lesson just with midlifers, period. Just get it out.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So I assume that's been very healing for you, getting to this stage of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When did the therapy start? Well, you said in your 30s?
Yes.
I think
only because you went first. I'll let you go first. And you told me.
I actually had to go through 3 different kinds of therapies.
Okay.
It's a long story, but I had a situation with my second husband. That's a whole nother conversation. But CPS was brought into our lives for a situation that happened between the children and him. And CPS forced me to go into counseling. Well, actually, me and the boys,
Gotcha.
just to kind of deal with that situation. And it turned out great. But I think in the CPS conversations with their therapist, some of the childhood things came up. And they were like, "Oh, baby, we need you to talk to somebody about that too."
Yeah. They were telling that to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Because up until that point, I don't even know. Our mom never got therapy, or we never talked about that in our household. And I don't even know if it was on my things to do in life. But so I'm grateful for that situation to kind of force me to do that.
Yes.
So it was one round of sessions with me and my boys, and then one by myself to deal with the childhood issues. And then the third one was a lot of churches have something called grief share. And it's where, like, if you are dealing with grief in whatever way, you can come and kind of go through some sessions with that. So I was crying out to God in so many ways, and just, having conversations about what's going on with my life. What am I doing? How can I fix this? Is it too late? And for 1 year in my life, probably like 34, 35, I'm going to one session on Tuesday, another session on Wednesday, another session on Thursday, and really being forced to deal with a lot of stuff at one time.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it for the world. And anybody, I know there's a stigma sometimes with that, with seeking therapy, professional help. And I'm like, it's so worth it. I don't get it, either personal help or professional, whatever. Someone you trust to share those stories with, or a professional person that knows how to, kind of help you navigate through those. So for me, that's where it was, like early mid-30s and 3 different types, because I'm wrestling in 3 different areas,
And had she not told me, I don't think I've ever would have went. And she said, that was the best thing ever.
Yep.
And coming from her, who I know is a stuffer, is how I respond to it.
I like that.
Yeah, she stuffs.
always calls
And
me
so
that.
for her to tell me that, I was like, okay. I didn't do it right away, but as things begin to manifest, as pains begin to come up in my life.
In your own relationship.
In my own relationship. And me and my husband, I remember we were going through a rough time. We've been married 23 years next Saturday. Hey babe. But we were going through a rough patch, and I was in my mid to late 30s, and I remember I went to a faith-based counselor that my sister recommended, and that woman was looking at, and I began to talk about all this stuff, and then once I went to my childhood, she said, "Stop, baby, that little white lady got me together too." She said, "You need to deal with this first. You're dealing with all the branches, baby. Let's get to the root."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Let's go back to this 12-year-old little girl, because this is who's running your life, because you haven't dealt with her." And when I tell you, it was just a revelation, and it sounds so simple, but if you haven't done it, it can't be.
Yep.
And so that's when I was able to walk back, and she was like, "Write a letter to your dad, write a letter to your mom. You don't even have to send them, but get that out. Tell that little girl she's safe now. She doesn't have to worry about what's happening and what could happen the next day, because you're living in fear because your parents are fighting all the time." So that was the most pivotal point of my healing, was going to therapy, guys. And again, and I know it's not for everybody, but think about it. Talk to somebody. Talk to your grandmama. Talk to your auntie. Talk to somebody about the pain that you're going through that's unbiased, that will listen to you. Because I think a lot of times, too, when I talk to my kids about therapy, and the person who I'm talking, I got 3, but she know who I'm talking about, that don't really want to go, it's not what you think. They're not telling you what to do. They're making you think about what has happened to you, so you can make those connections.
That's what I always tell people. If you go to a therapist that's telling you what to do, get a new therapist. Because the best ones are going to let you talk it through. They're going to question different things and then allow you to discover that. And I've gone to somebody who was like, "Well, you should do this." And I was like, "Oh, no, ma'am." And then, and then I just kind of switched that up. But But yeah, life changer.
Life changers.
For sure.
And once I was finished and complete with it, just basically diagnosed as PTSD. Like I've been in a war, and you've been out here living with post-traumatic stress disorder and just living through it like nothing has happened, and you have to deal with that. And just to see that on paper, when she gave, and I was like, well, I haven't been in a war. Well, you have, because you've experienced trauma, and most of us have been through some sort of trauma, probably not as unique as ours, but still it affects you the same way. Deal with it.
I'm thinking about that conversation again. Y'all are great storytellers. I'm seeing you sitting in whatever situation, probably very similar to this, comfortable chair, somebody sitting across from you, and she's hearing you probably talk about everything in your world. And then this one little story. Oh yeah, and by the way, this happened when I was 14.
How it came out.
And she's like, "Whoa!"
She was like, "Why are we even talking about your marriage? Why are we talking about anything else?
Hit the brakes."
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, and I'm glad that you ladies are talking very openly and very positively about therapy, because I can say that as a midlifer, somebody deep into their 50s, this was not always an okay conversation.
Right.
There was and is in a lot of situations a stigma like, what? You got a therapist? Or what?
You crazy?
What you need that for? I was even having a conversation with my own father, but just whatever things. And I was like, okay, you might need to see some help. Oh, no, I'm okay. I'm like, you are totally okay. But it sounds like this is something you need to process. And it kind of flipped it. And then he became very inquisitive, because I'm not saying that you're not okay, that you're not healthy or whatever, but you've got something where you're stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a conversation that I'm glad is happening within the Black community, because you're right. We would go to church and we would pray about it.
Yep.
You would give it to God, and it would still be there.
Yep.
It's okay. Yeah, you give it to God, but here's the tools that God's giving you to start processing this. So that is very helpful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So now that I'm gonna say y'all all healed,
It's a process, y'all.
It's a
Life
process
now.
But like right now, you've now been able to put all of this into the book. You've had time where you're taking care of yourself. So, I mean, what's going on in midlife? Y'all having fun, or what does it look like?
It's up and down and around the town. Like, okay, I'll speak to this, just like you said, just the freedom, because now you got a little bit more freedom to move. And, normally for New Year's, we'll sit around and and I was like, babe, let's go to Vegas and see Bruno Mars. Like, that feels good in midlife.
Did you do that?
And we
Yes, she
absolutely did that. And it
Oh.
was absolutely freaking amazing. Bruno, and those tickets were totally egregious, but Bruno Mars don't owe us no money.
It was worth it.
It was worth it.
See that?
Okay, doing little stuff like
Because you
that.
ain't got no babies on bottles.
That's
She-
right.
yeah.
You could just get up and go, Mama, where y'all going? None of your business. Me and Daddy
Grown
finna go
folks.
have grown folk fun and come home when we come home.
And,
so,
and I'm sideline hating because my 8-year-old is like, hey.
and
That's
I'm like,
right.
girl, you had that baby in your 40s.
That's right.
And, those are the good things. But then the other side of that is watching your parents age. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, watching. And, people always say, oh, it gets easier when your kids get grown. Lies. Because you worry a little bit more and you try your
Different.
best not to, but it's there and you watching them transition. And what about, people don't talk about this either, when your kids come to you and they upset about things you did. And it's time for you to own some things and make some apologies. And like that has been like my kids, they've been knocking on the door. And but the good thing is me and my husband have been opening it. We have been, tell me what I did, baby, so I can apologize and we can talk about it. That is a part of midlife, too, that I don't feel like nobody prepared me for.
This is your first time here.
That's right. It's my first time here. So I'm knocking on 50's door and I'm like, okay, so it's good and bad. I would absolutely say that, man, if you take care of yourself, and I'm trying my best to, man, you can enjoy this thing. It's not about, I used to be scared, 40 was old. And it's like, well, you almost 50 now, so 40 old.
Yeah.
It's not old at all.
It's
Look,
not.
it's just, man, I wouldn't trade the wisdom for
Nothing.
nothing.
And talking about taboo conversations, one thing that kind of drew me to your podcast was the conversation about perimenopause and the fact that we don't have that conversation either.
No,
and
nobody told
I was
me.
telling my sister a few weeks ago that I think my mom is living with Alzheimer's now, but it started, we could notice things right after she retired. And I wonder if she was dealing with some of those hormonal changes and all these things, mood swings, brain, and didn't know what it was and didn't know how to deal with it. So I think for me, I was, things are pretty good, but that perimenopause,
it's a beast.
and it's a beast. And I was talking to a girlfriend last night who just had a birthday, and she was like, I can't concentrate. I can't. And if you don't know that that's coming, that that's a normal thing that's going to happen around this age, then you think you're losing your stuff.
You do.
And I don't want to say stuff, but it may, you feel
losing your shit.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not as refined.
and a lot of us, or a lot of my girlfriends, are leaders in their fields, and it's like, now you want to introduce brain fog? Like now, when I'm leading this team,
I'm at the top of my career, and I need to have everything
on point.
Yes.
And perimenopause says, no, ma'am.
Like I said, it will betray you.
So I would say for me, that's the most shocking thing about, but I'm glad that you're having conversations here. There's more women talking about it here and there. I've been trying to hip her to it. Like,
and
it's
I got
coming.
friends telling me scary stories. So yeah. And like you said, just even, just something simple. Like I had a friend tell me about the insomnia, that is something that, and no one told me that. And I noticed, like, man, I don't sleep as good as I used to. Could this be a precursor to?
Yes.
So yeah, just stuff like that, man.
It's true. It's true. And I have this all the time, in front of me, my little iPad, my pen and everything. And maybe somebody is looking like, God dog, she always got that sitting. This is what I do to keep my memory in check. I will have things. I got 15 different things that I want to talk about, and camera will turn on, and I'll be like, "What's my name?" And it'll just bounce. Everything bounce in your head for a little while. So, talking about menopause, being very open, especially with Black women, and people might say, "Oh, you all on Black?" Well, I am a Black woman,
That's
so
right.
that's where my perspective comes from. And I hear us finally, when someone says it out loud, it's like it's almost a visible exhale amongst everyone that's sitting at the table. Like, oh, thank God you're talking about it.
Yes.
You're dealing with it. And even going back to your mom, and I think, God, when you mentioned they were just in their early 30s, and she had already lived some serious life experiences, and then, possibly whatever issues with, when you retire, and now, you've got the Alzheimer diagnosis and everything. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
In a very short amount of time. And so it's one of the reasons why, number one, I'm glad you're talking about therapy and taking care of yourself, because you got to live this life to the fullest.
Yes.
So we have today, we have the right now, but we don't know what's on the other side of the door tomorrow. So I definitely am happy that you guys are sharing this story. But tell me one other thing about, with all of the lessons that you have learned based on the experiences that you share in this book, the way that you've seen it manifest in your adult life and your relationships, what is the message and the lesson that you want to share that if nothing else, that they get from your example?
Okay, you looking to me, sis. And I think
I have an idea, but I'll let you go.
I love the sister dynamic.
I know, right? We're
It's
trying
like
to
there's
play
a
off each
silent
other.
calling out every time.
Right?
It's like,
Qiana?
yeah, you gonna say it?
I know. And for me, I've just, I think I've spoken a lot on it just already, just about being able to process. Even, when you start talking about mom, like me and, like, we have a front row to watching our mom decline, like the strongest woman in the family that kept everybody together. And it's just like, while watching this, and it's not for nothing. God uses everything for a reason. And it's like, you're being able to watch this, but this could be you, and we knew that mom, she talked, but she didn't process. And we even think, like I said, we're not doctors or anything like that, but just from my own perspective, I really do think, because of a lot of the pain and trauma that she went through, and not just in her marriage, but from her childhood, is why she began to shut down. Because she didn't have she retired. She didn't have her purposes anymore. Her kids were grown and adult and out of the house, and she was just alone. And when I tell you, the decline was so rapid and so instant. And so that, for me, is a front row seat to say, hey, make sure you're dealing with your stuff, that you don't want to end up being shut down somewhere, and and watching mom, who gave us everything, going out the way that she's going out. It's just like, man, you can make a different choice. You really, really can. And that's more so what I want to focus on. And to forgiveness. Like, let me tell y'all something about forgiveness. Forgiveness is like a factory reset for your life, right? And we speak a little bit about it in the book. But when I tell you got to let whatever it is go, I don't care who it is. I don't care what it is. I don't care what they did. If you can speak to those little black girls on that book, like if we went through and survived what we went through, like you can forgive anything, and everything that, we went through is not in that book, but the biggest precursor to that trauma is. And so just, I'm learning too, that's another lesson for me in middle life, is to let it go, forgive, and forgive yourself. Like we've been held on for our own selves and don't realize that we're unforgiving to ourselves. We're mad at the decisions we made, or who we got together with or who we didn't get together with, and the stuff mom and daddy did. And it's like, y'all, let it go. But I'm saying forgiveness is a factory reset. You want to go back to the beginning, start forgiving people.
I love that. Forgiveness is a factory reset.
It really is.
Okay. And one thing we mentioned in the book dedication was the ultimate thing. I mean, we definitely wanted to help people. We also, I think the biggest takeaway is for us to pass on something better for our children.
Yes.
Like making sure that you have a healed mommy, and that my daughter, again, who's 8, I call her Velcro jokingly because she's always right here.
Yep.
My mom and I didn't have that relationship. And I talk a little bit about that in her chapter. But we didn't have that dynamic. And so me kind of unpacking why that was, and I want a different experience for my daughter. So making sure the best thing that you can give your kids is a healed parent. So making sure that we show up for our adult kids and the kids that are still coming up, making sure that we leave things better than we found them.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the takeaway for everybody, just to kind of move forward and make sure that whatever legacy or lessons you're passing down to the next generation is something that you want that's better for them than maybe you experienced yourself.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best thing is a healed parent. So what's next for you ladies? I mean, it took you 10 years to get out the first book. When's the next book coming?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And we talked about workbooks and all these things and the podcast. And we're just like, let's just do this for now.
Yeah.
Let's just put the book out and kind of see what happens. But I think because we do want it to be a help to others, is to just kind of get the word out, just raise the awareness. We have a website that we've dedicated to our mom. Her name is Rebecca. So it's rebeccasgirls.org. And we'll start to list like our book appearances or signings or things like that on the site. And we started a business that's 4K.
Yes.
That's the name of it because my mom's middle name was K. Is K. My daughter's middle name is K, and my mother-in-law's middle name was K.
All the Ks.
And so everything that we do business-wise and service-wise, we want it to be in honor of the women that are a part of our lives.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to do a little extension into that, something that I'm launching, and I mentioned about the author on the back of the book, is that I'm doing a budgeting company. I feel like that's something too in midlife that people don't talk about. We don't know how to manage our money, right?
Because we got to go see Bruno Mars.
Look, right? Look, right? And so even though I'm not like an investment queen or anything like that, that would definitely be more of my husband's field. But I'm a budgetista.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely trying to launch my a program, my business, budget with me, managing money mindfully. And if you can't manage what you're bringing in every week, every 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to do these other things, you know? And so it's about being able to have your credit in order, have your budget in order, make sure you're saving money every single time you get paid, and also being able to give. That's energy. You can't just be about you and what you have going on and not expect to, you be blessed by being a blessing.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that money part of it, that's another good midlife conversation to have.
So you got to come back and talk about that.
Okay.
And she would say, like, of course people know how to do that. Of course people know how to. And I'm like, you'll be surprised.
Qiana,
like, no.
Yeah.
There's a need. I learn things from her. I tell her all the time. She's 2 years younger. but she's one of the smartest women I know. And so she's my baby sister, but I look up to her in a lot of ways because she really is on point with so many things. And I'll go to her for advice. I don't listen sometimes.
But
but she really is good in that regard. So I think you said what we're looking forward to is just service. Just how can we take all of these lessons and all of these years of wisdom and be of service to others? And that'll unfold in different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of messages that I could see you being excellent messengers for, So I'm very, very honored that you ladies, number one, you put this out there. So it is a testament itself. But then to come here on the podcast and share that, to be the first, by the way, to be able to share this with us. And I definitely hope the book is successful in a lot of ways. Number one, I'm about the money. We can talk, to get all that. I'm saying that we need to get ours right now.
Yes,
especially in midlife. Don't hold back. But then also with all the takeaways from your story, from your example, and being able to talk openly about the healing process and what impact this is going to have on your family tree going forward. It'll be tremendous.
Yes.
I'm very sure of that, So I'm very, very, very happy for you.
Thank you for giving us the platform to be able to do it.
This is great.
Yeah, we can hang, Southside girls, whatever.
We can come together. And to be fair, we live on the north side now, but we
made a good
Southside girls.
decision.
We're Northside transplants. That's what we say.
Yes,
Our
but
husbands
expats.
are out here. Yeah.
Good deal. Well, we are going to make sure that we link the book in the show notes. You can find it on their Square site, and it is going to be on Amazon. But we will definitely make sure that you have access to that. And whenever, I'm saying it out loud, when the podcast launches, we'll make sure that we update you on that as well. But if you would like to get in contact with these ladies, I personally would vote for you to come and do some workshops someplace. So I'm putting that out there. Somebody's looking at this and saying, I need to call them. If there is any doubt on how to reach out to them, if you reach out or make a comment, on the podcast, on the show notes, we will make sure that we get that information to them. But ultimately, I hope that this was enriching to you out there. If nothing else, there is, I'll say, a happy ending. You are the happy ending. You're sitting here today, and you're able to move forward as fully healed, wonderful messengers of this story. So you're honoring your family beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, folks, we will close it out. I do want to hear your comments. Please let us know what resonated with you about this episode. If you get the book and you want to make some comments, I'd like to hear that as well. But ultimately, we hope that you are still living your best melanated midlife. Stay tuned with us. We've got more episodes coming up, but definitely we will see you next time. Bye.